Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about all things 3DO, the company, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Threk. How you doing, Threk?
Oh, I'm doing all right, Bill. A little podcasted out from our last episode, but how are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. It's been weirdly busy at work lately, so I'm kind of getting through that. I think I messed my back up too, which is always fun.
Oh, what'd you do?
I have no idea. I think I slept on it wrong.
Oh, that's not good. Have you been stretching it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm just old. Turned 30. Start falling apart.
Well, I definitely recommend looking up some like beginner like yoga videos and try doing some of those stretches. Those can really help and make you feel a lot better. So
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it's nothing serious, but
it probably isn't, but still you gotta be safe in that shit, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, not a huge amount of stuff this week. Hopefully this might end up being a bit of a shorter episode. But we'll start with the news stuff. Let's see. We got some NSO games finally, or at least just kind of randomly, but we got two Game Boy games, and they are two of the best games for the fucking system. Donkey Kong 94 and Mario's Picross. They added them in, and it's about time because I think both of those games are fantastic and are long overdue to be added to the NSO. So that's great. I might actually sit down and play through Donkey Kong 94 at some point again on here. And I've played Mario's Picross like a bunch of times. That is
Yeah.
I wish I knew how much I liked Picross before I started getting into Picross. You know, I was for some reason when I first saw it, people are like, "Oh, this is stupid bullshit." And I was like, "Well, that looks kind of fun." But I finally started playing them, and I'm like, "Yeah, these are great."
Because I'm pretty sure Mario's Picross bombed when it first came out because it was just people weren't ready for puzzle games, I guess.
I think it's because Picross never is it's a popular puzzle game in Japan, but it never really crossed over here. It has like a lot of popularity in the West. It has a bit of a cult following, but it's not Sudoku, you know.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing Picross in the morning paper, you know.
No.
So and I've tried to show Picross to other people, and I see why it doesn't work, and it relies a little bit too much on math, and that kind of annoys some people. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But yeah, it's great. It's great to see these two in here.
I'm surprised Donkey Kong 94 took that long, to be honest.
Yeah, because that's a lot of people say that's the best game on the Game Boy.
Up there, anyways.
It's top 5 at least. So I don't know, but it's there, so that's good. But you said we had an NSO drop.
Oh yeah, new music drop. So
I don't know what it is.
You remember last week how we talked about the game that they added, and I was like, why is there one game that's particularly not here?
What was it last week? Was it Mario 3?
Mario 2.
Mario 2, okay.
And I questioned why a certain game wasn't there when we had 2, and then it's one of its successors down the line.
Oh, it was Mario 3.
Yeah, they added that finally.
Yeah. It's about fucking time. I love Mario 3. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, glad to see it here. I would really like if they put in like the GBA version of the soundtrack because I really like that version of it. But I know these tracks like the back of my fucking head. So
yeah,
that's all we're getting.
Freaking
no copyright claims. Nintendo.
The World Select screen music lives in my head rent free.
Oh yeah. It's all fantastic music. So that's great to see. Let's see. Konami is holding some Silent Hill transmission thing. When are they doing this? They're doing this March 13th. And it's about Silent Hill F, which I guess is like the new Silent Hill game that they announced a couple years ago and has been dead silent on ever since. Now we're finally getting to hear more about it, so that'll be good. It's actually something I'm really looking forward to, because there was that other Silent Hill project that didn't work out. I can't remember what it was called.
Silent Hills?
No. It was when they announced Silent Hill F and Silent Hill 2 Remake. Okay. There was that third thing that was kind of weird and people didn't like it. I can't remember what it was called, but there was the 2 remake, which did better than I think everybody expected, which is a good thing. And so F, we'll see what F does. It's like a brand new game. I think it has mainly like an Asian development team, so that might be good. And yeah, we'll see what it does. So, are you looking forward to it at all, Bill?
I'll be sure to pick it up. I still haven't got around to the Silent Hill 2 remake yet.
Yeah, neither have I. I'm waiting for it to come to the Xbox, which it probably will at some point this year. Let's see. Chrono Trigger is turning 30 years old. Goddamn, we're old, man. And Square is saying they're going. Square has announced it will launch several projects in quotes around the franchise. It is unclear what these projects are, but
is 2 games really a franchise?
I mean, and they're only really celebrating the first one.
Yeah, I mean, if you count Radical Dreamers, I guess it's 3. But I've always been like,
well, we say trilogy, not franchise.
Yeah, I know, and even then, Radical Dreamers is barely a game.
Yeah, it's a radio drama. It's the third disc of Xenogears.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious what we all want from this, right? But will Square actually do it?
Make a new game or give us a re-release? That's the
thing. It's on Steam, and the Steam version has improved over the years. I know it started out in a really rough shape, but I think it's gotten better now. But I mean, the obvious thing would be like they did with, say, the Pixel remasters, was just put them on all the modern consoles. Be like, here you go, here it is. They could do Chrono Trigger Pixel remaster if they wanted to. And I think that's really all people want. Just put Chrono Trigger on PlayStation, on Switch, on Xbox, and people will be fine. Just do it.
It's a long shot, but part of me wonders 2D HD 2D engine.
That would be cool, because I think that game would really shine in that style. But I'm just worried that Square's
I'm just worried Square's getting too reliant on that, and it's gonna lose its luster.
People have been saying that for years, but I really don't think it has. I mean, we're getting the 1 and 2 HD 2D remakes for Dragon Quest this year, which I don't think they've. Have they been dated? I don't even know.
I don't think so. I just know they're working on it.
Well, because I know they said it was coming early in this year, unless that got pushed back, which is possible. Yeah, I mean, Chrono Trigger, they don't have to do an HD 2D remake. I think people would like it. And I remember when the HD 2D remake first appeared, people wanted Chrono Trigger for it, right away. That was the game they wanted to see in that style. So would doing it in that style mean this is the apex of the HD 2D? Nowhere to go up beyond that? I don't know. But I think the easier thing would just put it on all the consoles and just be done with it.
Or even at the very least, just put it on NSO. Just do something.
That'd be cool. That would be cool. They somehow hide it behind the $50 tier.
Yeah, I know, right? It's Square, so they'll find a way to be stupid about it. But
I mean, hey, they were a little bit stupid about the Pixel remasters when they first came out, but they've gotten better about that. So,
you know what I find very interesting? They didn't do. Not a single Final Fantasy got the HD 2D treatment.
Not yet.
Not yet. It just makes me wonder, because they just did the Pixel remasters, that they're even going to bother.
Not if they do, it won't be anytime soon. That'd be my guess.
And the real question is, which one would they even do? I mean, most people would say they're 4 or 6.
I think 6 would be the easy one to do. But yeah, I don't know. Chrono Trigger, it's on PC and mobile. And it's perfectly fine on those platforms, but just put it on the console. Just put it on Switch so people will stop fucking whining about it.
Yeah, well, it sucks.
Well, then all these Chrono Trigger fans can finally play the game for the first time.
Yeah, it's like the Earthbound fans when they got their big awakening a couple years ago.
Or with the Sonic Unleashed PC port. I don't know if we've talked about that on the show, but Sonic Unleashed Recompiled came out, which was it's taking the 360 version and recompiling it to make it a native PC port. Yeah, that came out. I messed with it a little bit. My laptop's not really powerful enough to run it, but I already have it on Xbox, so it's fine. And it's funny to see certain people complaining about Unleashed again, or like complaining about it in ways that's like, oh yeah, they've never played this game before, like the moon metal stuff, like the metal stuff, and it's
Oh
like,
yeah, that's right. Because
yeah,
most people they play the days. Most people who play Unleashed these days, they'll play the day stages and then they'll just turn it off.
yeah, but like if you only do like the opening day stages, you're missing a lot of the later day stages, which are really good. And there's a couple that are
True.
there's a couple that aren't great. And I think the night stages get a little bit better as you go on as well.
True.
But that gauntlet of a final stage, not a fan of that.
Eggman
Not a
Land.
fan of that at all. No.
Eggman Land's also like the first place where they tried to do 3D platforming with that engine at the time, and I was like, oh yeah, this game was not designed for this.
Yeah, yeah. And that final boss, I hated that final boss.
Oh
Um,
yeah, the fucking that
Yeah.
gauntlet.
Yeah, not a fan. But it is still a good game. So hopefully people now are finally getting to experience it more. And I think with how this recompiling is going, I think that means more like 360 games that didn't get native PC ports now can, like the same way N64 games were getting recompiled. So, we'll see. We'll see if we can get more of these. 2 Human recompiled. About damn time.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, why not?
I got that in
yeah.
a bargain bin for $1.
You can get it for free on a Series X because of the lawsuit, so they can't charge money.
Yeah.
They legally cannot charge money for it. So if you want a copy of it, don't pay any money for it because you're not supposed to. Anyways, so back to Chrono Trigger. I think they'll do some like merch and some bullshit with it, but hopefully they do the right thing and just put it on the consoles and just let everybody finally get to play the game and be done with it. That's all you got to do, right? Easy peasy. All right, let's see. This one I found kind of interesting. Lego is starting to bring its game development in-house. So for decades now, Lego has outsourced all of its game development to other studios, be it Traveler's Tales, be it 2K, be it Epic, indie devs, all this kind of stuff. But I guess now Lego has been seeing how much success they've been having in the video game industry for the last couple of years and are saying, oh, we should probably start to like make our own like game dev studio and start making some of these games ourselves so we can get more money. And I'm not against that idea, but I get
to be fair, Traveler's Tales has just made the same game for the last like 12 years. So
yeah. And you can tell in the last couple of years, Lego has been wanting different developers to make games for it. I mean, we have like Lego Fortnite, which is a big thing. I mentioned 2K because there's a Lego 2K Drive, which is kind of like a mini Forza Horizon type game, like for kids, and it's really fucking cool. I like it. And there's like Lego Builder's Journey, which is like a little indie puzzle game with Lego pieces, which is really cool. Like there's a lot of things you can do with Lego as far as video games are concerned. Apparently there's like a Lego football game in the works, and that could be something that the in-house Lego team, like that's their first project potentially, right?
You know what I kind of like if they dipped into the vault and brought back some of those like classic Lego games.
Oh, like Lego Racers and
Lego Racers, Lego Island, like
those old PC games that people have a lot of fondness for.
Lego Island is like stupid fun just because it's like just
Lego Chess, god damn it.
Lego Chess, Lego Loco,
Lego Stunt Rally. Maybe they'll bring back the Bionicle games.
Oh, that shitty PS2 game. I love.
I think there were multiple shitty PS2 Bionicle games.
I just remember the one that Argonaut made. The one that's just called Bionicle.
Yeah, they're the iNinja guys.
It's like not good, but it's also not the worst. So it's like in that weird.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there are people who love that game to death, And hey, Argonaut, they're back. So,
they sure are.
Yeah, they're. I don't think that Croc remaster has even come out yet.
I don't think so. I just remember like Argonaut came back and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, the Star Fox guys."
I was like, "Fuck yeah, the iNinja guys."
I know, right?
I love iNinja. So I would love to see that game get a proper remaster, give it another chance, but
There's
we'll
like
see.
so
Give it
many.
achievement support, and I will 100% that game,
There is
and we'll
like
do a
all
3D
these.
episode about it.
There is so many PS2 era platformers that I swear to God I wish would get re-releases.
Yeah, that was a really interesting time for platformers in that era because they were really starting to refine themselves and make some like genuinely good games. But a lot of the devs and even some of the publishers making games in that era just don't exist anymore.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's like, so it's who owns this, and do they want to do anything with it?
like
You
the
know?
one that I always think of is like Doctor Muto, the last official game made by the original Atari.
I have it. I
Me
have
too.
it.
It is
I've been meaning to sit down and play that game.
it's good. It like no one bought it, so it
Yeah.
bombed, and then that was it for Atari.
And and the thing was published by Midway, so there's a good chance it's owned by WB.
Possibly. I know it because Midway had kind of absorbed the remains of Atari by that point, and then they just
Yep.
kind of became a Midway studio. And WB bought most of Midway's assets, but I know they didn't buy everything. So
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like in the deal and they just didn't realize it, because that happens with a lot of business acquisitions when you buy like this giant thing and then you go, oh, we also have this. Oh, okay. Like when Microsoft bought Bethesda,
mhm.
and then they were like, I think they were like shown like say like Hi-Fi Rush and like what Tango was working on, and they probably went, oh, we own that. Oh, okay, cool.
someone
That was kind of that.
someone should just I don't know if he's on Twitter. He probably isn't, but someone should just tweet out Ed Log and ask who has the rights to talk to Muto because that was like his last game.
He might know, but my guess is Dr. Muto is probably a part of that because I can't think of any major Midway assets that aren't owned by WB. Like
Because who ended up with Gauntlet?
they did WB.
Okay,
Yeah, they
Gauntlet was
made
part of the Atari.
they made the 2014 Gauntlet game.
Right.
Yeah,
Wasn't that one bad?
Nope. I never played it because it was PC, PS4, came out 2014, 2015. I was not paying attention to games in that time, so knew nothing. And it was made by Arrowhead Game Studios.
Never heard of them.
They made Helldivers.
Oh,
Yeah. Before they made both Helldivers, they made a Gauntlet game for WB.
don't you mean Hellblade?
No, Helldivers.
Well, apparently they're the same game to me, as we learned in that.
Oh, God, I can't remember. My brain's mush. But yeah, somehow we got there from fucking Lego. I don't know, but
yeah.
But in this report, it mentions what Traveler's Tales is potentially working on. And the idea is like how they did everything with Lego Star Wars, did the whole reboot to that, and was really successful. The rumor is they're doing the same thing with Harry Potter. That they're going to do like a big, like Lego Harry Potter reboot thing or whatever, which kind of makes sense because Hogwarts Legacy did so freaking well that it would make sense that they would kind of jump on that. So, and honestly, if it's good, it might be a Harry Potter game I may actually check out because I've heard the Lego Harry Potter games are really good.
I'm sure they are. I mean, I'm not a Harry Potter guy, so I probably won't care.
Neither am I. It's same with like Hogwarts Legacy, where I'm like, it looks like a cool game, but would I put 40 hours into it in like this open world RPG? Probably not.
See,
I need to play that one on the GameCube. That's like a Zelda game. I think it's Chamber of Secrets. That's basically just Zelda, but Harry Potter. That's the one I need to play.
It's the only Harry Potter game I owned. I don't even know why.
A lot of people liked that Quidditch World Cup game back then.
I have that on PC because it came with the movie.
Yeah, people love that game from back in that era. And funnily enough, not that long ago, they made another Quidditch game like recently, and it came out and it did not hit.
Yeah.
At all. Because I guarantee you there's somebody listening to this going like, oh, what, they made a new Quidditch game? I'm like, yes, they did.
See, Harry Potter's kind of, for me, it's like it's in the same category as like Lord of the Rings, where it's something that I get why people like it. Just never did anything for me.
See, I'm a Lord of the Rings guy. Love me some Lord of the Rings, but am I going to play that Tales of the Shire, the Lord of the Rings game? No.
That game annoys me because I kept thinking it was a new Tales game. I was very disappointed.
A Lord of the Rings game in the Tales engine. That'd be cool.
Probably be the only way to get me to enjoy a Lord of the Rings product.
Oh boy, it's not weeb enough for you, I guess.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, but yeah, well, hey Matt, I love me some Lord of the Rings. Don't feel too bad. But yeah, Lego doing that. Sure, we'll see what happens. Right. I should play through the Skywalker saga. Looks like it's fun. And enough time has passed when I tried to 100% Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga that maybe it might be time to do the Skywalker saga, or maybe Lego Indiana Jones or something. I don't know. Every once in a while, I get an itch to play a Lego game, so we'll see. The last thing I have is Apple Arcade is getting brand new Katamari and Space Invaders games.
Cool.
So not that long ago, Bandai Namco revived or whatever their trademark, refiled their trademark for the Katamari series, and it had people go, "Oh, are they making a new Katamari?" Blah blah blah. Whatever. I guess they are, but it's exclusive to Apple Arcade.
They had been re-releasing, like, because they redid the original, and then they also did the second.
Yes, they did Katamari Damacy, which is the original, and We Love Katamari, the second game. Re-roll for both of them. Played through them both, love them both. They're both fantastic games that everybody should play.
I love the fact that the second one is entirely meta about the fact that the creator didn't want to make a sequel, but he did too anyways because money.
Yeah, and it's kind of him poking at how much people love the first game and sort of his relationship with it and all that. But it's fucking phenomenal. It's kind of better than the first game.
The whole series is honestly really good. Even that really weird Vita game.
They lose their charm after a while, but they hold up. They're still a lot of fun.
Well, it was kind of. It really sucked that the third game was exclusive to the 360, and then the fourth game was exclusive to the PS3. So it was like, gee, being a fan of that series must have been rough.
Well, with Beautiful Katamari, the 361, it was supposed to be on the PS3 as well. But at that time, Bamco was struggling with the PS3 architecture. So that's why it didn't come out. And there was rumors of it coming to the Wii as well, but that never really materialized. But Beautiful Katamari on 360 is a fun game. And then Katamari Forever, which is the PS3 one, is like a weird hybrid of like a compilation of some of the earlier stuff and brand new stuff. It's a weird mixture.
It was fun.
But but they never made a Wii one. They made that Vita one, which I have, and I still haven't played it.
There's also a PSP one. I think it's
like yes, there is. Yeah, Me and My Katamari. Yes, I think I have it on my Vita. I just haven't played it. But yeah, we're getting a brand new Katamari game exclusively on Apple Arcade. I mean, this could be a case of it's on Apple Arcade for like a year or two, and then it comes to platform consoles or something. Who knows? But we're getting another Space Invaders game, Space Invaders Infinity Gene Evolve, which I think it's meant to be some of like the more modern Space Invader games that try to have like, I guess it's like if Tetris Effect was a shoot 'em up almost, like it has all like, or like a mixture of like Geometry Wars in there, with like all the colors and the neon and very flashy kind of stuff. But it's cool. But it's still Space Invaders, so cool.
You remember when they tried to make Space Invaders like edgy and like dark, like that Space Raiders game?
Oh, on GameCube? I kind of love that game, actually. It's kind of, but it's so stupid. It's amazing. Because it's the epitome of like that era, like trying to make everything edgy.
It's right up there with like Act Zero. It's just like it's no one.
See, that game is bad. That game is bad. It's a bad Bomberman game. Or do you remember the PS2 Narc?
Yeah, it wasn't very
good. where the original was about shooting drug dealers, but in the PS2 remake, you can take the drugs.
Of course, yes.
You can either give the drugs to the police to get more money, or you can take the drugs and get stronger, just like in real life.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, or that edgy Final Fight Streetwise. You remember that?
Well,
that game is so bad.
There is actually like some story behind why that one ended up the way it did. But
yeah, I've vaguely heard about that story.
I think Matt McMuscles did a whole video on it.
Yeah, he did. Oh, what happened on it? I don't think I watched that one though. But
it was very entertaining in the fact that it kind of was like, oh, this is why this game is so abysmally bad.
Yeah, I'm sure it has a very fascinating reason.
I think the one that's the most hilarious from that era though was the weird PS2 Altered Beast game that's like bizarre.
Oh yeah, that was European only. I
Yeah.
remember that.
It was
I've
about this
never
weird
I've
like
never played it.
it's about like genetic like experimentation and shit. It's like
See, trying to revive Altered Beast as a 3D beat 'em up makes all the sense in the world, right? Like, sure, why not? Let's do it. But from what I hear, they didn't do a good job of it.
no. That was
Or
Sega.
Golden Axe Beast Rider. You remember that? That was
The only thing I
360,
remember the only thing I remember from that game is Gilius Thunderhead saying, "Buy my balls."
but- oh god. See, that was such a really fascinating era in games where they're trying to bring back every IP but make it like dark and edgy as possible.
Yeah.
You know. Whereas
Or-
nowadays, if they try to revive a franchise, it's usually they just put the old shit out and just hope people like it. Or I mean, we'll see what Sega does because they're actually genuinely trying to revive some of their IPs. So we'll see how that new Shinobi game does and all that. So I'll let you all know because I'm all in on that.
If it's the same quality as Streets of Rage 4, then we have good hopes. High
I think it's the
hopes.
same dev, isn't it?
Blizzard Cube, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the same dev, so I'm sure it'll be just fine.
I look
Right.
forward
Yeah.
to it.
But yeah, that was the news. Not a lot. Yeah, we're just kind of waiting for Switch 2 to drop and then things will get crazy again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's get to the game this week.
So this
You know-
week,
No, go ahead.
I don't have a physical of it, unfortunately, but
I do.
Foes of Ali.
Foes of Ali, yes. It is a boxing game.
It's so. This is such a fun era of EA Sports back before like all their stuff was so corporate. Like that's just like a fun title for a game like this.
Well, it's trying to be historical,
Hmm.
Bill. I mean, I'm sure you don't know much about boxing history. I know maybe a little bit more than you. Not a lot, though. So yeah, Foes of Ali. This game came out in 1995 exclusively for the 3DO. So that EA licensing deal is still existing at this point. Developed by Gray Matter.
The same studio that made Siberia
Yeah, can't believe it.
and
Can you?
Wolfenstein: Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Like we're just going full circle here.
Just a lot of crazy shit. Wait a minute. No, it's not the same company
You sure?
because that studio is called Gray Matter Studios, but the company that made this is just called Gray Matter Inc.
Oh. Well, then ignore the thumb. Then just don't question my thumbnail I made for this episode.
It's a monolith type deal. RIP. It's kind of like that.
Well,
I mean, to be fair,
oh,
I totally understand the confusion because looking at it, I'm like, that is weird.
this is the same studio that made fucking Wayne's World on Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, I was gonna get to that. They made so originally they were Chris Gray Enterprises, formed by some Canadian dude named Chris Gray. They made such games as Captain Planet and the Planeteers for the NES, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles for the NES, a game I played on stream long ago, Techno Cop. Some of you might remember me playing Techno Cop. If not, go look through the archives and you'll see me. That was a fascinating game. Absolutely fascinating game. Let's see, what else did they make? They made the Dirty Harry game for NES, the Mad Max game for NES, James Bond Jr., Wayne's World, as you mentioned, the Terminator on SNES, WWF King of the Ring. So nothing but bangers from these guys. Nothing but just amazing classic video games.
You know what the best part is too? When you try to look them up on everything, it just wants to bring you to the other Gray Matter.
Yeah, which is weird because I think this Gray Matter definitely, or at least they evolved to something a lot more interesting, but we'll get to that as we go. But yeah, you can tell this is sort of their biggest project up to this point, making a boxing game for EA Sports. Was this the first EA Sports boxing game?
Yeah, because it predates Fight Night and the other series that EA did.
Knockout Kings.
Yes, that one.
Well, I guess we can say this game evolved into those series because Knockout Kings, they were all made by a company called Press Start, which I guess is the company that morphed out of Gray Matter Studios. And then, so they made the Knockout King games, and then those eventually morphed into the Fight Night games. So, yeah. So, weirdly enough, the entire span of EA boxing games starts with this guy, which is really interesting when you think about it.
That actually honestly is, because the whole time I was thinking, like, when I was playing this game, I kind of was getting the vibes of that, but it felt very rough around the edges, kind of like a very early attempt, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it definitely has that sort of early attempt. Now, I'm not an expert in boxing video games. I take it you are not either.
Not really.
Okay. I think we've both played Mike Tyson's Punch Out at the very least, right?
Well, yeah, that's Mike. I've played Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and I've played Punch Out on the Wii Punch Out. Other than that,
Super Punch Out on Super Nintendo.
I probably dabbled with it.
That's a really good game. Yeah, I've played through those. I played Power Punch 2 on the NES once, which is like that weird sort of sequel to Mike Tyson. It's a whole thing. And I've played a bit of the Fight Night games that happened later. So it's weird how this kind of sits somewhere in the middle, because you have Mike Tyson's Punch Out, which is very simple, very arcadey, very easy to sort of understand, right? And then you have, say, the Fight Night games, which are trying to be these almost kind of like simulation style boxing games with all these different punches and blocks and things that you can do. And Foes of Ali feels like the beginning of that. Like it's trying to be more of a complex simulation type of a boxing game, with having like the 3D models, which were probably really good at the time.
It's actually one of the first 3D boxing games.
I can believe that. Because it has some. I mean, the 3D models that are in the game of the boxers are surprisingly not bad.
For 3DO, even early 5th gen standards, it's not a bad looking game.
No, not at all.
Like I've definitely seen worse. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah, like the 3D models are pretty nice. The rings are pretty solid as well. I mean, the audience is just a bunch of like little circles that they drew with like 2D sprites or whatever.
Yeah.
And it tries to have more of like a cinematic kind of presentation with the ring announcer and everything. And then all the various arenas. My favorite was the Cleveland one, because it's a ring, and in the center of the ring is just Ohio in big ass letters. And I'm like, hell yes. Shout out. Shout out to the best state.
I think my favorite part of this game was the campaign mode.
If you call it a campaign, or like a career mode or whatever.
Not so much how it was exactly handled. I like the idea of it, where it followed all of his iconic fights in order.
Yeah. So if you don't know, it's based on Foes of Ali. The idea is you are Muhammad Ali, and you're sort of going through some of his most notable opponents throughout his boxing career. So you have like Henry Cooper, Joe Frazier, Sonny Liston, Leon Spinks, Chuck Wepner, these sort of iconic opponents that Muhammad Ali had throughout his career. No George Foreman, unfortunately. I was hoping to see the Grill Man here.
Yeah.
Or even Larry Holmes. I'm surprised Larry Holmes wasn't here.
You know what I did? A nice touch too. They used in the early fights, they used his original name.
Yes, Cassius Clay, which was a nice touch, but I often get the sense with when they're talking about Muhammad Ali, they have no issue saying his older name, which I think is, I'm not sure how I feel about it, because the reason Muhammad stopped calling himself that was because he referred to it as his slave name. you know, because Muhammad Ali, besides not being just an amazing boxer, was also like an activist and very prominent in the '60s like counterculture movement. And you know, he was part of the Nation of Islam for a while, which hence the name change and all this other
Mhm.
stuff. So I can't imagine he was probably a big fan of people still occasionally referring to him in his old name, which to me feels a little disrespectful. But you know,
Yeah,
as we've learned over the years, you know, some people do not have an issue dead naming people for whatever reason.
true. I liked it in the sense that it was a historic thing because just for the
Historical
time,
is fine, yeah.
because they the second he got to the point where he started using his the Muhammad Ali name, they changed right to that, which I thought as like a historical thing, it was interesting, but for the most part, he's strictly Muhammad Ali throughout the game.
Yeah, yeah. And so so the game follows a very sort of like a slightly chronological sort of timeline on the fights. Yeah, it's trying to be historically accurate and does some interesting things in that regard with say like trying to set up the fights and having some historical records, which I think is really cool and a good thing. It feels like boxing has always been a sport that people do respect the history and the lineage of it more than other sports, at least
Yeah.
from my vantage point. Um, and yeah, the game looks really good. It sounds really good. The menus are pretty simple and easy to navigate. But the core of the gameplay, is how do the kids say? Not very good.
It's you can tell it is one of the first 3D boxing games. That's for sure.
Yeah, apparently it gets compared a lot to a game called 4D Sports Boxing, which I've never seen before in my life. And looking at it, I wish I had never seen it in my entire life.
Uh, let me take a quick look. That's a cover.
Yeah,
That is certainly a cover.
yeah. Some about it, just pretty ick.
Yeah, this game looks much better.
They had more than a couple polygons to work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, the gameplay itself for a game that's trying to have like more of a simulation style, and you know how you can have all these different type of punches. Like the controls are kind of weird. It's almost tank controls, where it's like you move up to move forward, and then like left or right to sort of turn, and then down to back to like take a step back. You get used to it, but it is kind of funky at first. And you have all the different, like you can do like straight punches, jabs, hooks, uppercuts. You can block, you can duck. Like you have all these you can even like grab the opponent as well, which is a notable boxing move, like just like giving them a big hug. But I found trying to be strategic in any sense didn't work. The only thing that worked was just straight up button mashing.
Yeah. That's kind of how I got through everything. I did the classic shitty fighting game mentality where just keep mash buttons till something happens.
Yeah, because so many times you'll try to throw a punch and it either doesn't connect or it looks like they're not even throwing the punch at all. Like they're halfway doing it and then they kind of give up, and it's like, but why? I made the input, like this isn't analog inputs. I don't understand it. And yeah, the only strategy I had was doing 2 hits with the left and then 1 with the right. And I just repeated that over and over again. And most of the time it worked, which was crazy to me because I only ever knocked somebody down once. Every other time I won on decision, which always feels like a shitty way to win a boxing fight, but whatever.
That's like when you're playing like a arena fighting game and you win by ring out.
Well, in ring out, you can kind of like force the opponent out.
Yeah.
Which kind of creates its own sort of strategy. No, it's more like if you're playing a fighting game and the time runs out and you only win because you have a little bit more health than the other guy. Like that's how they determine the winner of that round.
True.
That's what it feels like to me. And it's like, that sucks.
Yeah, you won the war of attrition.
You caused and won it at the same time. Good
Yeah.
for you. But yeah, it's severely lacking in modes. Like you have an exhibition mode where you can kind of just set up whatever. You have a tournament mode where you can set up a tournament and still do whatever. And then there's that career mode, which tries to have some historical context to it and all that. And that's really cool. And I think they could have went further with that and had more of a um more of like a documentary style where they could have had like say pictures of like the fights and then like an announcer in between fights like detailing some of the history and the lead up to the fights and like where say Muhammad's headspace was at the time, that kind of stuff. And I
My
think
guess
that would have been
is
really beneficial.
my guess is because it was a very early game, one of the first of its kind. Licensing was probably an issue with a lot of these fighters.
I mean, they were able to get them. They were able to
got
get all
mo-
their likenesses. I mean,
They
I
did get
don't
most
know
of them.
how boxing licensing works at all because there's no union or anything like that. So I don't know how they get these guys, like if they just pay them royalties or whatever. But I mean, still, like when they're setting up the Ali Frazier, like say the first time they fought, they could have done a whole thing about the build up to that fight and the fight of the century and all that other stuff. Like the 3DO was capable of doing that kind of stuff, and I think that would have been cool and a bit of a missed opportunity to be sort of a historical document for this
Yeah.
stuff.
I think it was kind of one of those things where like they were trying something new and they didn't really go all in with it. They kind of did. They did like the bare minimum for a first time like attempt.
Yeah. You know what this game reminds me of now that I think about it?
But
Reminds me of Ready to Rumble. You remember Ready to Rumble?
to be honest, I wished I was playing Ready to Rumble the entire time.
See, I don't even really like Ready to Rumble that much.
Have you played
And
the
a lot-
Dreamcast version?
Yeah.
That's the one that I kind of like.
And
Yeah,
a lot of
playing
my issues with Ready to Rumble are kind of the same issues I have with this game, and that's I can't figure out what the hell to do. Like I'm trying to come up with these strategies to win, and in Ready to Rumble, I would just get my ass kicked because I just couldn't figure it out. But here, I wasn't really getting my ass kicked. I mean, I did get knocked down a couple times, but for the most part, I was winning because it felt like the computer didn't know what to do either. They were kind of confused half the time.
They are kind of rock stupid in this game.
Yeah, and it's so surprising to me how this did kind of evolve into the Fight Night games. Like I remember Fight Night Round 2 being like a really big deal when that was around. And those games are much more complex and do a lot more with like say the presentation and having historical fighters and all that other stuff. But I have not played it. I've not touched a Fight Night game in a very, very, very long time.
Didn't the Fight Night team also end up making that really bad Def Jam game?
Yes, they did. EA Chicago, Def Jam Icon.
Yeah.
That
was a game.
I don't necessarily hate that game, but sort of my big issue with that game is that it completely takes away the wrestling aspect, which is what made the first two Def Jam games so great, was that they were wrestling games.
Those
they were
made by Aki.
They were made by Aki. They were some of the last games to use the Aki engine, and like those guys who made all those classic N64 wrestling games, and even they were doing some Ultimate Muscle games for GameCube and PS2. So there was still a demand for Aki to be making these games. In fact, they were going to make a WCW game because they were licensed to do that because EA had the publishing rights for WCW games after THQ went to WWF. And EA were making they made Mayhem and Backstage Assault. Not great games, but they were able to contract Aki because at that point they were done making they were working on a sequel to No Mercy called Backlash for the N64, but that would have come out in 2002. And by that point, who the fuck cares? And THQ was shifting all wrestling game development to Ukes. So Aki was free, and EA said, hey, why don't you come in? And originally they were going to return to making WCW games, but WCW went out of business. So EA lost that license and somehow picked up the Def Jam license to make
one of the
wrestling
weirdest
games starring rappers. And it is weird when you think about it, but those first two games are so fucking good.
It's one of the
still to this
weirdest
day.
concepts that worked.
Oh yeah, like Def Jam 5 for New York there's a reason it's one of the most highly sought after and expensive games of that generation.
Yeah.
And I, hold on, have a very nice and pristine GameCube copy. Don't ask. Well, actually, I didn't pay that much for it somehow because I got both Vendetta and Fight for New York. I spent, I think it's like 150 on both, like together. But I ended up selling off my copy of Vendetta, so I did get some money back. So in theory, I didn't spend all that much on this guy, but it's still fan fucking tastic.
Yeah, it was a series I missed out on because I wasn't into rap at the time.
Yeah. I was kind of into it, but it was more that it was a wrestling game that I was excited about it. So
True.
Because as you can tell from this episode, I know a lot more about wrestling than boxing. So I have no problem completely diverting the conversation. But
Yeah.
there's only one wrestling game for 3DO, I think, and it's Japan only. But of course we will cover that at some point. And it's not a Fire Pro game or anything like that, so you don't get to hear me bitch about Fire Pro.
Yeah. So there's honestly the biggest thing with this game that I find is that it just kind of it is very much a first attempt. In a lot of ways, it lacks a lot of substance.
Yeah.
Because even like reviews for the time, mostly it's great when rather than saying positive or negative, it just says mostly mediocre.
That's a great way. I mean, it is a very, very mediocre game.
Yeah. Like Edge Magazine gave it a 4 out of 10. Maximum gave it 3 out of 5. And EGM gave it a 6.25 out of 10. So they were the nicest to it out of these three.
Yeah, GamePro called it one of the lamest boxing games, citing poor control and lifeless polygon graphics.
Is that like a retrospective review? I'm wondering because like graphically, I think it was pretty impressive for 95.
From what I gather, that was GamePro, and that was them reviewing it in 96. Like
Fair.
at the time, yeah.
I guess PlayStation was out by then. Actually N64 was probably right around the corner. So
I'll say I found the review. Thanks, Internet Archive. It says it's a pretty short review. It says, "Ugh, EA Sports makes The Greatest one of the lamest boxing games. With exhibition, career, and tournament modes, the game lets you assume the role of Muhammad Ali or any of his 9 real-life contenders, including Smoking Joe Frazier and Leon Spinks. The poor punching control and bland rings, however, will have you screaming for greatest heavyweights for the Genesis. That actually is not a bad game. Although you get 21 views. Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of camera angles. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I messed around with some of them. I was kind of like, that's a lot. I was like, that's cool. But at the same time, like, it's like, how many of these you actually get used?
Yeah, like, I appreciate that sort of attention to detail. And again, trying to have like a cinematic thing, but they never do anything where in the middle of the fight, like the camera angle switches around, or if like big things happen, you almost get like a replay, you know? Like they don't do that, which I think would have definitely given it some life. But yeah, it says, although you get 21 views, you'll wish the effort spent on cinematography was used to brush up the lifeless polygonal sprites. Fortunately, the blood is realistic. The ring sounds are a little better than average, but where are Ollie's witticisms? That's a good point. Unless you must box on the 3DO, leave Ollie in the box.
I know.
Yeah, that was GamePro in 1996.
Maximum actually praised the graphics, particularly in regards to the 3DO's limitations, but then their main criticisms were at the gameplay, which is a fair criticism.
Yeah, the gameplay just really isn't there, you know? Like
interestingly, in 2006, GameSpot described it as the most accurate representation of boxing for its time, which I'm not sure I agree with, but that's something.
Yeah, that I don't really agree with. I mean, it's definitely trying to go for realism, but it's that era where going for realism is not going to translate to making a really good video game. No. You know, like, yeah, there are some pretty solid boxing games on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo and the NES that I think have aged far better and are much more fun to play. And hell, probably I've never played them, but I imagine the Knockout Kings and some of the later Fight Night games are much more entertaining to play than this. So in a way, it's a stepping stone for better things to come.
Yeah.
But we don't
It's,
get boxing games anymore.
no, we really don't.
Like boxing has been reduced to things content creators do for content. You know, like boxing as a sport has, I wouldn't say it's lost its legitimacy. I mean, the legitimacy of boxing has been debated for quite some time, but sort of its luster and the things that made, say, like the Muhammad Ali or even like the Mike Tyson era, like, what made boxing so special and engaging, it's completely gone now. I mean, there was Mayweather and there was Pacquiao, there were some bigger fighters in the last couple of years, but really, unless you follow that scene, it doesn't have the same sort of energy to it anymore, unless you want to see
Yeah.
like fat YouTubers beat each other up.
Yeah, you're not gonna get like a DC Comics tie-in where Superman fights Muhammad Ali these days.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me a bit of UFC. Like UFC, you probably remember there was a time where UFC was like the biggest thing ever. And
Yeah.
now half the time I forget it even exists. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's still a thing."
Yeah. It's it's one of those sports have like go through like their fad periods where like they're the biggest thing in the world, and then they immediately go back to being football's bitch.
No, they'll always have their enthusiast crowds.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah. Like how I'll always be a pro wrestling guy, even if I don't watch it every week. I still like to keep tabs on it here and there, so it'll always be there for me. But I mean, hell, WWE's going through a pretty decent period right now. Like
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been tuned back in for a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, it's a lot better than when I was trying to watch in the mid 2010s. That was a rough time. That was a lot of garbage. Now it's
Yeah.
like not as much garbage, but also that's, I think, because Triple H is running everything now, and he has more of an eye for wrestling than Vince did, or at least Vince kind of, by the Ruthless Aggression era, that was when they should have phased Vince out of creative. But
Yeah.
don't get me started on wrestling. I'll be here all night.
Yeah. So okay, must play, stay away. It's kind of hard because like we've played much worse,
Yeah,
but this game is kind of one of those like games that like its biggest offense is that it's just kind of boring.
yeah. It's not demonstrably bad.
No.
To me, it's probably one of the okayest games we'll ever play on this thing.
Yeah.
Like
Like
it
it
falls
was
right in the middle. Like I have nothing that bad to say about it, but nothing about it really sticks out, Like the best part of the game is the cover. Like
yeah, that is a cool
audio
cover.
listeners, if you get a chance, look up the cover of the long box for Foes of Ali. It's a very iconic photo of like Muhammad Ali winning his bout with, I think that's Frazier, Joe Frazier, and that's a very iconic photo, and like big bold letters of Foes of Ali behind him. Looks really cool.
It's just such an interesting name that
But
EA
it's not as
Sports.
cool as this cover. That cover's amazing.
Yeah. I just have when I'm thinking of like because this is the fourth and I'm thinking final EA Sports game on the system.
I think so.
And when I look at those covers, I mean the FIFA one was pretty dull. The Madden one is iconic because it's John Madden.
Madden. It's just Madden, so
Yeah,
I'm happy.
back when he was always on the cover, and then the golf
Yeah.
the golf one was just golf.
Yeah.
Um,
Every golf video game cover I've ever seen just looks like golf.
yeah, yeah,
That's fine. It's fine. It's not that big a deal.
It's no hot shots golf, that's for sure.
No, it's not.
Because you know what makes golf exciting? Anime girls.
We get it, Bill. Jesus Christ.
Well, it's actually ironic because most of the Hot Shots golf games they changed the covers for the U.S. to get rid of the anime girls.
Yeah, we have class over here, okay?
Yeah, until they said fuck it and just started using the Japanese covers.
Because then they realized, oh, we're fucking smuts too. So give them the anime girls.
Yeah. Then they just said fuck it, just call it everyone's golf.
Yeah. And so what if I'm being hypocritical because I like Bayonetta? Shut up. Shut the fuck up.
But yeah, it's a very okay game.
It's a very okay game. It existing doesn't hurt anybody. You can say that much. Whereas some of these games
so
we've
much
played,
better.
its existence hurt.
Yeah, it walked so much better games could run.
Yeah, like Knockout Kings and Fight Night. So unless someone will tell us, oh, the Knockout King games are dog shit, and I'll be like, well, fucking hell, I don't know anything.
Yeah. So the question is now next week's game.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually thinking, do you want to cover that weird armadillo thing we discovered recently?
Weird armadillo thing.
Forget it's like the platformer or something that you play as the armadillo, or is it a first person shooter?
Cyberdillo?
Cyberdillo, yeah.
Let's fucking do it.
Let's do Cyberdillo. We're gonna have to emulate it because it's one of those 3DO games where you look up the price and go, nope.
Unfortunately, yeah. In fact, funny story before we get out. I don't know if I told the folks this. When I went and bought Foes of Ali, I actually bought a physical copy for it. A game store by me had it, and I knew they'd had it for a long time. So I was like, I'm gonna go get it because I know they hadn't sold it by that point, and they hadn't. So when I went to get it, it was behind a glass case, and I had to ask somebody to open it with the key and everything. And then they said, "Oh, what game do you want?" They said, "Oh, do you want a Journey into the Neurodancer?" And they have a nice CIB copy of Journey into the Neurodancer, which is a game we will cover later in the series, and it's like $400.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind, dude. I'll take Foes of Ali, please, which thankfully was only $30.
Yeah, it's not
So
bad at all.
not a bad priced game at all.
For a long box, that's a good deal.
Oh yeah, it's in decent shape. I mean, it's kind of bulging at the sides a little bit, but
That's just unfortunately those style boxes. They just
yeah,
kinda,
it's sort of like the weird clamshell design, but it has like a nice big manual. It has the registration card too.
So yeah, next week we will do Cyberdillo, which is gonna be an interesting one. I hope it's good, but I have no idea. So
I think it'll be interesting at the very least.
But yeah, so anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us on the 3DO Experience. The 3DO Experience can be found on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to check us out over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com. It's an awesome site. Find a whole bunch of different shows, videos, blogs. We're about to be starting, I think actually we, at the time of this recording, the first of what's going to be a series of PlayStation related blogs will be releasing shortly. Me and Thrak are both going to be participating in that as well.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Anything else I'm doing? I don't know. Did I talk about BioShock Infinite already?
You'd mentioned the not Infinite. You'd mentioned the previous ones.
Okay. Well, the conclusion to me and Dre's covering of the BioShock trilogy is out. We have done BioShock Infinite. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly encourage you do. It is a fantastic episode. Probably one of the best podcasting episodes I've ever done. Seriously, like in my career, it's near the top of the list. It was fantastic the whole way through. So go listen to that because it was a really interesting conversation between me and Dre about that game. And also, roughly around the time of this recording's release, my collab with Rick from Pixel Project should be out. We covered Medieval on the PS1. So nice. Tune in for that as well. So that should be really good. And hopefully around the time of this episode, our very first 3D owned episode will be out, where we are deciding to once a month, maybe a little longer than that. Who knows? We're going to cover non-3DO stuff. And our first episode is a bit of a doozy as far as content and length is concerned. So stay tuned for when that drops. We don't know yet because it's a lot. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
It's recorded, but we still have to edit it. And I'm still working on some of the... I'm not sure what I want to do for the branding yet on that. So we're going to find out. But look forward to the first of our new series, 3D Owned, which will be a monthly project.
Yeah, something like that.
With that, guys, once again, thank you for joining us. We will see you all later.
Bye-bye.